Hey guys, welcome to the video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and I'm going to be giving quick thoughts on Secret Invasion and the newest season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I'm going to start off with the new season of It's Always Sunny. I just don't have too much to say about it. It's just that comedy isn't really conducive to, having big long debates about, or, discussions about. But I've been a fan of It's Always Sunny for years, since before I even started high school, and it's a great show. This season was okay; it wasn't spectacular, but I was talking to my brother about this, about how when you're caught up on a comedy show and you're waiting for the new season, you're going to be more judgmental because you were waiting. Whereas if you just watched this season in a binge and there were, two more seasons after this or whatever, you would be less critical, and you wouldn't pay so much attention to them as just episodes within the binge. But overall, the episodes were okay. I thought that they were pretty good. It's the, I believe, second shortest season, with the shortest being the first one. This season is only 8 episodes, and part of me thinks that's probably because of Rob McElhenney being involved with the Welcome to Wrexham docuseries and him running the Wales soccer team with Ryan Reynolds. I really love that show too. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I don't even care much for soccer, but it's a really riveting show. So I think his dedication to that is why, why the season's shorter. And when you watch that documentary series, you see he's filming this season. So I think he sort of got tied up with it. But overall, the season is, it's strong. It's not like amazing or anything, but it's pretty good. Then moving on to Secret Invasion. This show, it's generally not liked. I thought it was mostly fine, but just overall forgettable, and I find it really frustrating that the creators of the show couldn't simply take that scene from Winter Soldier where Fury is being chased and make that an entire series and just have Sam Jackson be a badass for 6 episodes. I was, and with the element of the scrolls, there's even more paranoia that can be explored there. I thought that would have been really cool, and the show just ended up falling flat. A lot of people hated the finale. I did think it sort of devolved into nonsense, but I don't really have a problem with, spoilers here if you haven't seen Secret Invasion. I don't really have a problem with Guy getting all of the powers and becoming a Super Skrull. I know in the comics the Super Skrulls are just from the powers of the Fantastic Four. So she might be, she is probably the strongest character in the MCU at the moment. We'll see how that turns out. Maybe there'll be some sort of explanation as to, why she can't, use her powers at the same ability. So she's not, clearly a massive advantage for the heroes, and the tension of the threat in the next Avengers film or whatever is diluted. So, yeah, it was just very disappointing. I think a lot of the performances are great. I was disappointed that they killed off Maria Hill like that, just so suddenly. I really love Colby Smulders. She's, really great. And she's been part of this series since the first Avengers film in 2012, so she's been playing this character for over a decade. It really sucks to see her go in such an unceremonious way. Sam Jackson's really good, as, is expected. Fury's going through a lot in the show, and he plays it well, but you've got the issue of Marvel always is showing you the trailer for the next thing before the most recent thing even comes out. So we already have the trailer for the Marvels film, and we see Fury's going to be fine. And, so then the tension is really deflated once you're watching this show, because he's going to end up okay. Then there's the stuff with his wife, who is an alien. I thought that was interesting. And, it's sort of whatever. It's funny seeing Sam Jackson kiss an alien in the last episode. And then Emilia Clarke is fine on the show. She's sort of doing her usual thing, more so in the vein of Solo than in Game of Thrones, but she's all right. I think the standouts are the guy who played Gravik. His name's something Ben something Adir, and he's really good in it. He especially really picks up in the last episode. That's where he's going full throttle with the acting, and he actually was starting to become a compelling villain. And then Ben Mendelsohn, I think, is a standout. I think he's absolutely the best actor on the show. And again, spoilers, it really sucks that he dies somewhat unceremoniously towards the end of the show. I really would have loved to see his character continue. But yeah, overall, it was. I mean, I found it mostly inoffensive, but that's probably just because of what I'm used to from Marvel recently. Overall, I don't think it's very good and it's forgettable, and I don't think it should have been those things. I think it should have been really exciting espionage stuff. And people are comparing the Skrulls to the villains from Falcon and Winter Soldier. They're definitely very similar in that respect. That they feel cheated, but then they sort of unrealistically turn to violent means. That are unreasonable for people with their points of view, just so they can stay villains, so we can still side with the heroes. And then Olivia Colman's also on the show. She's really good. Don Cheadle's good on the show. He ends up being a Skrull, so he's playing somewhat of a different character from Rhodey. And then Martin Freeman's also on the show at the very start, and he's as usual. He gets the job done. So now I'm going to be moving on to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. So I'm a really big fan of the series. I love all of them except 2, and 2 being the second film, not 2 of the series. And I think since Ghost Protocol, it's just been uphill from there. Ghost Protocol is great, and then I think that Rogue Nation's even better, and I think Fallout is spectacular. This film, also directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who did the last 2, I did like it, but I did not love it. I think it's not as good as 4, 5, and 6. And in case you don't know, this is the 7th film. It's directed spectacularly, but I think that the story is not as compelling, and I do think it's kind of cheesy. And I was telling my brother, I think it's going to become dated. I mean, it is somewhat relevant today because the villain in the story is AI. And, there are instances of AI, like, going rogue. So I guess it's not out of the realm of reality. But there's part of it that feels like this is going to be what people thought hacking was in the late 90s and early 2000s, and how those movies are dated now. The villain being AI is also pretty impersonal, as opposed to if we had like a human face there to hate, like in the last movie where we had Henry Cavill. Obviously, the character of Gabriel's meant to be that, especially with his past with Ethan. But any human face that is an antagonist in this movie or the next movie is just going to be the lackey to the faceless AI villain, and I think that's kind of lame. So the stunts are great, the car chases are great, all of that's great, but the story itself, the sort of driving force, I wasn't really into. I'm just going to go into spoilers because that's really where a lot of my nitpicks come from. But Gabriel the villain, I did not find him intimidating at all. I keep joking that he was about as threatening as a dad at a PTA meeting. Like, he was just kind of lame. And then you've got, I think, the biggest mistake that they made in the film, which is the death of Ilsa. That just completely fell flat for me. It didn't feel emotional enough, and also what really irked me was that it felt like they were replacing her with Hayley Atwell. And I remember there's a part in the movie where Gabriel says one of those 2 women will die, and I'm like, okay, let me think. There's a bunch of scenes in the trailer that have Grace in it, and no scenes except for one where she's fighting on the bridge with Ilsa, Ilsa's only scene left in the trailer is her fighting on the bridge. And so I was like, okay, so Ilsa's gonna die. And then she did, and it felt really unceremonious to me. And I know there's a part 2. Some people are speculating she's still alive, but I don't really think she is, which really upsets me. And it felt kind of gross that they just like shifted. They sort of just really quickly swapped Ilsa for Grace. I think, Grace as a character, I like Grace as a character, but she's not as great as Ilsa, I think, and it feels like they sort of just didn't know what to do with Ilsa, so they threw her to the side instead of giving her a new story arc, which would have been great. Like, they're giving Ethan a new story arc in this film with Gabriel being someone from his past, so give something to Ilsa, So that just really got under my skin. The movie came out almost a month ago, and I'm just still not over it. I'm really bothered by Ilsa's demise. If she ends up being alive, I'll be happy. And I was also listening to interviews, and they were talking about how Christopher McQuarrie, he brings in actors that he wants to work with, and it's not until after that the character is made. They don't have the character first, they have the actor first. And so I feel like they brought in Hayley Atwell, and then they made this whole character for her, and they were like, oh, well, this is kind of pushing Ilsa to the side, so we'll kill off Ilsa, and then you will be the star. And then even you look at the poster, and Grace is significantly bigger on the poster than Ilsa. So I knew on some level she was going to be taking a backseat, and I was concerned about her death. But in the series in the past, you've had, Luther be the main tech guy, and then Simon Pegg comes in, Benji, and then they are both the tech guys. You didn't have to kill Luther to bring in Benji, so I don't know why the same couldn't be said here. And also, I remember hearing that Jeremy Renner's character, Brant, Brant, he was supposed to show up at the beginning of Fallout and die, which ended up being Luther's fake-out death. But he didn't want to come back just to get killed. And that, to me, really signifies that Christopher McQuarrie just doesn't entirely care about the characters, and he was willing to just brush off a character who we had enjoyed for 2 full movies previously to Fallout. So it wouldn't surprise me that he would have that same attitude towards Ilsa. I think that his writing... I think that he's really good at directing, but maybe the storytelling isn't his strong suit, and maybe we should have gotten a different writer when it came to the care of the characters specifically. All that aside, I still really like the film a lot. Everyone's really good in it. I didn't mention Vanessa Kirby. She's back from the previous film. She's the daughter of M from the very first film, or of Max, not M. M's James Bond. I'm getting my spy stuff mixed up. And then you've got Kittredge from the original Mission Impossible as well, coming back as an antagonist. So that seeing all that stuff and seeing more of the connections was really great. The other thing I wanted to say about Christopher McQuarrie is that I was really down for him to stay on as director as long as he had like a whole story to tell. But seeing that Rogue Nation and Fallout were so linked, I was sort of expecting Fallout to lead into Dead Reckoning Part 1, this film. But it doesn't really, and therefore at this point, if that storyline is done, I would have been much more into Christopher McQuarrie not directing, or directing and someone else writing. It therefore didn't seem very necessary for him to continue on the franchise, even though his direction is wonderful. So, talking about the action, all the action's great. The scene with the Fiat is awesome. The whole thing with the train that's right out of Uncharted 2, that was really cool. And then obviously the big stunt that Tom Cruise did off the cliff with the parachute that he did like 9 times. That's absolutely insane, and it's great. It's really great stuff. So yeah, overall, I liked it. I didn't love it. Plot-wise, I wasn't really into it, and also just the big elephant in the room is just Ilsa's death did not sit well with me at all. Not so much that it happened, but the way it was handled. So moving on, and now I'm going to be talking about Oppenheimer. And just what a spectacular film. Oppenheimer is so great. I really love this movie. It's probably my second favorite film of the year, behind Across the Spider-Verse. And it's just so well made. Christopher Nolan is, a really great filmmaker. Apart from his sound mixes, which are very frustrating, just in that, the dialogue is more quiet than both the music and the sound effects, so it's really hard to hear. He does it intentionally because he thinks it's more realistic or whatever, but it just doesn't sit well with me. I want to hear the movie. Actually, I did see the film twice, though, and when I went to the IMAX showing, it was much harder to hear than when I went to a standard show. So I caught much more of the dialogue on the second time. Everyone's in this movie. It's insane. All the performances are great. Specifically, Cillian Murphy is, obviously spectacular as Oppenheimer. Florence Pugh's in the movie. Jack Quaid's in the movie. Nickelodeon's own Josh Peck is in the movie. Alden Ehrenreich, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon. It's just a full cast. I know Rami Malek's in the film. It's just a really full cast. Gary Oldman is in there. It just everyone's in the film, and it's really, it's just a great movie. It's really compelling. It's haunting. I really love that the movie gets into Oppenheimer's sort of naivete and like, oh yeah, like let's get this project done, like more scientific brain, and then how that's just taken out of his hands and used for destruction in a way that makes him seem naive, but it's tragic and you feel bad for him. Obviously, being Nolan, the film is going to be told out of order, and it's not hard to follow. It's sort of split up into three segments. There's the main film, and then there's Oppenheimer being interviewed after the fact, and then Robert Downey Jr. being screened in a black and white sequence. His character Strauss. The movie's 3 hours long, and I really didn't feel it. I think that Nolan really made a movie where people are just talking for 3 hours feel really compelling and interesting. I'm not a fan of his last movie, Tenet. I don't like it at all. It's one of the first movies I reviewed on this channel, probably maybe the first one. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of that film. This film is really spectacular. I can't wait to go see it again. It's really, really good. I don't have much more to say than that. I mean, the explosion obviously was really impressive, but it's not even about that really. It's more about the moral nuance of making such a device, and the desperation and the fear and the implications of it all. I thought, that's where the movie really shines. The morality really. And it made me, it genuinely made me nervous, it makes you think of like a dreadful feeling of the potential apocalypse of the planet, and how, this weapon was made, 80 years ago. And like, if that's what we had then, thinking specifically now, back then they were scared of setting the world on fire, and it's terrifying, knowing what the people behind the scenes have in terms of weapons of mass destruction and their capabilities. That's really scary, and how they can go off any second. You could never know. But yeah, overall, really fantastic film. I have absolutely no qualms with it, except for the sound mix. That's just frustrating, Christopher Nolan stuff. Otherwise, it's really great. So on that note, thank you so much for listening. That's the end of the video, and I will have something new sometime soon. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.